This is Trial Transcripts Exposed by Crime in Court with Heather. Raw courtroom reads with my commentary. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Crime in Court with Heather. This is Trial Transcripts Exposed. We are diving into the Delphi case, Indiana versus Richard Allen in the homicides of Libby German and Abby Williams. And we are on the state's case. We're on part 35, and we are going to hear from a bunch of correctional officers. So in the last episode, we just went over Warden Gallipo's testimony, and today we've got 3 correctional officers that we have to get through. So let's not delay. Let's just get right to it because there's a lot to read. So, um, we left off, like I said, with the warden. He just got off the stand. Nick McLeland says, Judge, the state of Indiana would call Ethan Drang, please. The witness is sworn in, and now we have the direct examination of Ethan Drang. Mr. McLeland is doing the questioning for the state, and he says, will you state your name, please? Ethan Drang. Mr. Drang, you don't need to lean into the microphone. It doesn't amplify for us. We just ask you to use your best outside voice so that everyone can hear you. Fair enough? Okay. He had to say this or something to that effect for every witness. It's pretty funny. All right. Will you spell your last name for me, please? And he does. And Mr. Drang, were you once employed with the Department of Correction? I was. So not anymore? That seems to be a pattern of all of these people. They are either not in the same job or in a different location. Like everybody basically who was in this investigation has now changed jobs or careers or positions, whatever it might be. In which facility were you employed in? Westville Correctional Facility. And how long were you employed there? I'd say about 2.5 years. And before being employed with the Department of Corrections, did you go through any special schooling or training to become a correctional officer? I went through the Indiana Department of Corrections training. And what shift within the Westville facility did you work? It was called H Group. And what facility within that, or what unit within the facility did you work? I worked all over the facility. Are you familiar with an individual by the name of Richard Allen? I am. And how do you know Richard Allen? I was an inmate at Westville Correctional Facility. And did you interact with him while he was at the facility? Yeah. Tell me about that interaction. He was placed on self-unaliving watch, and they placed an officer there to do that watch. Tell me when you're on self-unaliving watch, what does that entail or what do you have to do? Just sit in front of his cell door and supervise him. Take notes. So someone just sat there and stared at him all day. How unnerving would that be? I can't. For 13 months, this took place. He had no privacy whatsoever, not even to go to the bathroom or take showers because they went with him. Just sit in front of his cell door and supervise him. Take notes. It's really a log, and log all the events that would occur throughout the day, whatever he's doing, whether he spoke to me, whatever he's doing. If he's sleeping, just kind of like put a 15-minute update log on there. And why do you fill out those logs? They're just state logs. That was my post for the day, and I was just completing my duties. Were you ordered to do that? I was. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 293. Are you familiar with this document? I am. And what is this document called? The Self-Unaliving Companion Watch Report. And is this Self-Unaliving Companion Watch Report that you filled out? It is. How do you know that? My name is on there, and so are my initials. And where are your initials on the document? Initials ED. That's not the answer to the question because he said where, but okay. And on the left side of the document, does it give you a date and time? It does. 4/5/2023. And would that document accurately reflect what you observed when you were on watch for Richard Allen? Yes, sir. Judge, the state would move to admit what's been marked as State's Exhibit 292, please, or 293, I'm sorry. It was offered. Mr. Rosie says, objection, relevance. I don't know what the court says. How's it relevant? Mr. McClellan says, just it has admissions by Mr. Allen within this document. The court says, I'll show 293 admitted over objection then. Mr. McClellan says, and judge would ask to publish the same to the jury. The court says, you may. Court says, you may proceed, Mr. McClelland, after it was published. Mr. McClelland says, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Drang, are these sheets made in real time? Yes, sir. And so you're writing down what Mr. Allen is doing and what Mr. Allen is saying when he does it? Yes, sir. So it's not a situation where you're observing in the cell and going back and making a report later, is it? No. I was sitting outside of his cell and then writing down whatever occurred. It's still from his perspective, and it's still, yeah, there's still problems with that, but okay. So I want to draw your attention to this companion watch report. What is the date of this report? 4/5/23. And what time do you start observing Mr. Allen on that day? 6 a.m. at shift time, or at shift change. And I want to draw your attention to around 8:46 a.m. that day. Did you hear Mr. Allen make a statement? The asking me if I wanted to take his Bible. I want to draw your attention to April 5th of 2023 at 8:46 a.m. What statement did he make on that date and time? Oh, I think coming to prison cured my depression and anxiety. It allowed me to find God. Do you want my Bible? How is that any admission of guilt? What? That's mental health. How can you even bring that in? They're not supposed to talk about his mental health, I thought. Unless you want to get into what it did, what his psyche, the effects of the solitary confinement for 13 months on his psyche, what that did to him, then let's talk mental health. But otherwise, I don't think the state wants that in. And then what occurred later on that day on the second page at 9:52 a.m. He slipped a yellow envelope with a request slip inside under the door. Request slip stated that he wanted to confess for killing Abby Williams and Libby German. He also stated he hoped he can apologize to the families. Did you coerce him to do that? I mean, like, I have so many questions. Did this just came unprovoked? Now, was that something he told you or something you read on the slip? That was something I read on the slip. Did you hear him make other confessions? Not to my knowledge. So just out of the blue, he just writes this down and hands this to this officer, even though he could have just said it to the officer. I think somebody coerced him to write that slip, perhaps. Was it Ethan Drang? I don't know, but it might have been somebody. So he says that was what he read on the slip, and he never heard any confessions. How long did you observe Richard Allen while he was in that unit? Like over time? Correct. Since he got to Westville and then up until I quit. And did you observe him on a consistent basis, meaning every time you worked the shift? Yes, sir. And how long? What periods of time did you observe him during the shifts? We split them up between 4 hours each person, depending on how many officers we had throughout the day. Through your training and experience as a correction officer, do you go through any kind of training or education to recognize someone dealing with a mental health issue? He is not a mental health professional. How is this allowed? I would have objected to that, but they let it in, or they didn't object to it. He says, I'm no mental health professional, but we do get a bit of training on when it comes down to like mental health or if someone is feeling a certain type of way, almost like a de escalation tactic. So tell me about that training. Do you learn to observe signs of someone suffering from mental health issues? No. Do you have any training to determine when someone is faking a mental health illness? No. And is Richard Allen in the courtroom here today? Yes. Can you identify him? He's in the khakis and the plaid shirt. Judge, will you let the record so reflect? The court says the record will so reflect. Mr. McClellan says, I don't have any other questions, Judge. Thank you. Court hands it off to Mr. Rosie, and now we have cross-examination. I'm gonna write down my timestamps here. Sorry, give me 1 second. All right, so cross-examination of Ethan Drang. Mr. Rosie is doing the questioning for the defense. Officer Drang, you don't work at the DOC anymore. No, it's just Ethan Drang now. So he's not an officer anymore. He quit being an officer. Mr. Drang, April 5th, 2023 is the date that this log sheet was completed, right? Yes, sir. And at 7:19, 7:21, and 7:25 in the morning, Mr. Allen is crying? Yes. He's screaming? Yes. Is from a mental health standpoint, he was in a pretty bad way, wasn't he? I'm no mental health professional. I can't determine that. Okay, but his emotions were shifting rapidly, weren't they? He was emotional that day, I'd say so. In fact, he told you he kind of liked it in the WCU, right? That's what I wrote. All right. That's strange in and of itself, isn't it? Somebody would like it in that place. To each their own. He's just like, whatever, I don't care. This guy likes it in jail, whatever. Even though he's in solitary confinement for 13 months. There's not much in that place that's likable, is there? I can't speak for everybody. Well, you work there, right? I worked there, yes. Some of the employees leave there depressed, don't they? Like I said, I can't speak for everybody. And then he says it's the prison system that cured his depression, right? Where was that at? 8:46 a.m. Yeah. He said, I think coming to prison cured my depression and anxiety. He wasn't getting any treatment in there, was he? He was able to speak with mental health daily. Yeah. The mental health provider comes by the door of his cell and asks him how he's doing, don't they? We would pull him out and he'd get to speak to Dr. Walla himself. Yeah, maybe once a week, maybe? It was offered a lot, actually. I can't recall really how many times, but it was offered plenty of times. Took him down the hallway? Yeah. Put him in a cage? Yeah. And let him talk to his doctor? Yes, sir. That's where the therapy goes on in there, doesn't it? Yes, sir. It's a cage, isn't it? He's behind a cage door, yes. And on this day, he slipped a letter under the door, right? An envelope. Mr. Rosie says, May I approach? The court says you may. Is that right? Yes, sir. This look like it? Yeah. Says that he wants to, this is State's Exhibit 292, right? What is the date on that? Well, there is no date on it. Okay. There's a handwritten note with a date on here, okay, of March 15th, 2023. Yeah, that's what I recall. This is what you saw, right? I hope I get the opportunity to tell the victims I'm sorry, the families, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what I wrote down here. The inmates in there get mental health codes. Yes. What was his code? I'm not sure on all that. Okay, you know anything about the mental health history when you were in there? I don't know. Nobody educated you about that? No, sir. I don't have anything further. And now we have a redirect of Ethan Drang. Mr. McClellan says, Mr. Drang, Mr. Rosie asked Alan was suffering from a mental health or mentioned that. Do you have any training to recognize whether or not someone is suffering from a mental health episode? No, I do not. The training and experience that you talk about when you become a correctional officer to talk about mental health triggers, is that something you learned in that class? Yes. That'd be like receiving phone calls from their family members and then whether they just skip out on a meal because they're upset that they're not at home, stuff along those lines. I'm not, like I said, I'm no mental health professional. Well, any of those triggers that you learned about in this class, did you see any of those when you observed Richard Allen? Yes. Okay, which ones did you see? When he would be on the phone with his wife or coming back from anywhere, just being outside the cell and going back in the cell, there'd be a trigger there. What would be the trigger? Just going back into the cell. I'm not really sure. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm sorry. I don't have any other questions, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Rosie. So, was the cell itself something that triggered him? He didn't want to go in there? Is that what I'm getting from that? I don't know. I hope Mr. Rosie clears this up. So let us find out if he does. Mr. Rosie says, so something as simple as walking outside of the door and then back into the cell triggered these symptoms? Yeah, sure. Pretty fragile, wasn't he? By fragile, what do you mean? Mental, from a mental health standpoint. I can't answer that. I have nothing further. The court says, does anybody on the jury have any questions for Mr. Drang? Anybody else? Would counsel approach? Sidebar conference concluded. So we do have a couple questions, or at least one. Mr. Rosie, oh, sorry. So sidebar conference was conducted. The court says, were there contents in the yellow envelope slid under the door on 4/5/2023 at 8:05 a.m. as noted on your log? Mr. McClellan says, I'm okay with that. Mr. Rosie says, yeah, that's fine. The court says, what did the content say? What were they, if anything? So this kind of depends on what his answer is. It says, were they contents? So were there contents in the yellow envelope besides the note? I don't know. I'm confused. If he says no, then I don't. Next question. Mr. McClellan says, no objection. Mr. Rosie says, that's it. The court says, no, that's it. Sidebar conference concluded. Now we have juror questions. The court asks the witness, sir, were there contents in the yellow envelope that he slid under the door on April 5th, 2023 at 8:05 a.m. as noted in your log? Yes, there were. Any response? Mr. McClellan says, no, Your Honor. The court says, or any follow-up? I'm sorry, any follow-up? Mr. Rosie says, no. Okay, what were the contents? What were they, if anything? The contents would be a request slip. The request slip, it was almost like a mailing system. They'd be able to send it through the mail, and that slip could then go to whoever they designated it to go to. Court asks any follow-up, Mr. McClelland. Mr. McClelland asks the contents of that envelope, the request slip that you testified about. I don't know where the actual exhibit went, but states, is this the contents of the envelope? Yes, sir. Okay. Mr. Rosie says, what are you showing him? 292? Mr. McClelland says 292, but I don't know where state's exhibit 292 went. I guess what I would ask the court is to mark this as 292. The court says, you may. Don't you think what? They're just slipping in new evidence? Oh, I can't find my exhibit. This is the exhibit. So can we just mark this new one? Where did the original go? What? We're just okay with marking a new piece of evidence as a replacement exhibit, even though, what? I don't like that. Didn't he just have it too? Or no? I don't know. Um, but anyways, the court says you may. It may have gotten into the packet that the jury had. Oh, why is my light flickering? That's weird. I don't know, maybe it's my light bulb. Seems fine now. Okay. So what were you showing him? 292. 292, but I don't know where State's Exhibit 292 went, so they replace it. And the court says, it may have gotten into the packet that the jury had. I don't know, but we can something. Mr. McClelland says, may have, Judge. And the court says, we can remark it. That's fine. That's not a problem because it was admitted without objection. How do we know that they're not sneaking in another piece of evidence to replace the other piece that they had? I don't know. It's just fishy to me. Mr. McClelland says, it was, Judge, and I don't know what. Mr. Rosie says, I don't think maybe I took it. Sorry. No, this one's stapled to my exhibit. Mr. McClelland says, so let me do this a little cleaner. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 292. Is that what was in the manila envelope that Mr. Allen shoved under the door on April 5th? Yes, sir. Okay. That's the contents of the envelope? Yes. Okay. I don't have any other questions, Judge. The court says, Mr. Rosie, and Mr. Rosie does have some follow-up. He says, so 292 has a note here in the top right corner, doesn't it? Yes. What's that say? Does it say reviewed? Reviewed, maybe? Yeah, that was not on top of the request when it was under the door. It's got a date there. What's the date there? 3/5/2023. March 5th, 2023, right? Yes. 11:47, the time? Yes. You received this letter from Mr. Allen on April 5th, didn't you? Yeah, April 5th. That's what the log sheet says. Yeah, I just had to count it. Sorry. There's no way Gallipo could have had this on March 5th, is there? It didn't exist? To my knowledge, that was in my yellow. Like I have no more answers. I'm sorry. Can't explain it, can you? No. He doesn't work for the DOC anymore, does he? Mr. McClelland says, Judge, objection. I don't know, sir. I am not sure. Sustained. Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Drang. You may step down. The witness says, thank you. You may call your next witness. So you guys see what happened there? This man, Ethan Drang, came on the stand and said, I had my one day here I'm testifying to. It was April 5th. This is the day I got the manila envelope with the note in it. I testify to this. This is what I say. This is my testimony. I swear on the Bible. Okay, fine. But just now, Mr. Rosie was like, this is the actual note, the slip that was in the envelope, right? Yeah. It's stamped there and says 3/5/2023 or 3 what was it? Yeah, March 5th, 2023, not April 5th. So March comes before April. So that means somebody's not telling the truth here because that slip was stamped and dated within the prison system, and that date has a date prior to the date of which this guy is testifying that he received the date or he received the slip. So that was some good cross by Rosie. Um yeah, so wow, that was good. Okay, that's pretty powerful stuff. But of course, the jury didn't get it, right? Because everything else was spoon-fed the state narrative. But that was explosive, and I remember it being explosive at the time when it first was revealed in the court that day. All right, so Ethan Drang is going to step down. The court says you may call your next witness. Mr. McClelland says, Judge, the state of Indiana would call Michael Clemons, please. He's sworn in. The court says you may proceed. Mr. McLeland says, Judge, I'm sorry. She says, go ahead. Direct examination of Michael Clemons begins. All right. So Mr. McLeland says, would you state your name, please? Michael Clemons. Mr. Clemons, I'm going to ask you to use your best outside voice. The microphone, it doesn't amplify for us, and so I have to be able to hear you along with the defense counsel and the jury. Fair enough? Yes, sir. Speak up just a little bit more. Sorry. Will you spell your name, please? And he does. And how are you employed? I'm a correctional officer at the Westville Correctional Facility. And how long have you been employed there? About 4 years now. And did you have to go through any kind of special training or education to be a correctional officer? Yeah, there's a program when you start. And how long is that program? I'd say around 2 months, maybe a little more than that. And you work at Westville Correctional Facility, is that correct? Yes. What shift do you work? I work on the H group, which is a day shift, one of the 2 day shifts. Okay. Can you tell me what the hours of those shifts are? 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And what unit within the facility do you work at? APOD. And are you familiar with an individual by the name of Richard Allen? Yes, I am. How do you know Richard Allen? He was placed at Westville under our care for. And did you have an opportunity? She just cuts him off. Did you have an opportunity while you were employed at Westville to monitor Richard Allen? Yes. Can you tell me about that? Well, I was his companion. Why were you asked to monitor him? I was a self-unaliving companion. Can you tell me what that is? I just watch over him and document whoever they have me on every 15 minutes. Were you asked to observe and document Richard Allen? Yes. And did you do so? Yes. And in the course of doing that, did you fill out any kind of paperwork? Yes, I did. Will you tell me about that? We have a companion sheet and we wrote down what it was like 10 to 15 minutes. We wrote down whatever. After you're completed with the companion sheets, what do you do with them? They were turned in to my lieutenant, I believe. And do you fill out those companion sheets in real time, meaning while you're there observing Mr. Allen? Yes. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 294. Can you tell me what that is? This is a self-unaliving companion sheet. And whose initials are down the right side of that? Those are my initials. And who filled out this companion? I did. And what is the date? It is 4/6/23, but it's scribbled out on the side and it says 4/7/23. And you believe you're the author of this companion sheet? Yes. And you recognize this companion sheet? I recognize that sheet. I mean, there were a bunch. Sure, but you recognize the initials down the side as well? Yes. Mr. McLeland says, Judge, the state would move to admit what's been marked as State's Exhibit 294. Mr. Rosie says, no objection. The court says, all right, without objection, 294 is admitted. Mr. Clemons, I want to draw your attention to April 7th, 2023 at 7:30 a.m. Did you make a motion? Did you make a notation or document that what Richard Allen said in that date and time? Yes. Can you read to the jury what you documented? It says, offender says, God, I am so glad nobody gave up on me after I killed Abby Williams and Libby German. That sounds made up to me. That sounds very made up to me. And is that your writing? That is. I want to draw your attention to later that day, 8:01 a.m. What did Richard Allen say? At what time? 8:01 a.m. Offender says, I, Richard Matthew Allen, killed Abby Williams and Libby German all by myself. Nobody helped me. So he just says that out of the blue while this dude's watching him. And he says it like that. Okay. Now you document these one time in your report. Did he say things like this multiple times? I don't know. Okay, I want to draw your attention to 8:03 a.m. What did Richard Allen say? Offender says, "I'm not crazy. I'm only acting like I'm crazy." Mhm. These are getting more and more believable. Mr. McClelland says, "Judge, the state would move to publish the companion sheet to the jury, please." Court says, "You may." It is published, and then she says, "You may proceed, Mr. McClelland." And he says, "Thank you, Your Honor." Mr. Clemens, when he made these statements at 7:30 a.m. and 8:01 a.m., and again at 8:03 a.m., would that be something that you would write down immediately? Yeah, I was told to write down everything he said, so. And so you would do that as he was saying those things. Yes. Don't you think? I'm not sure if this cell has a camera, but don't you think it would be better to just buy a camera? Invest in a camera? It'd be so much cheaper than having, I'm sure they have cameras already installed in the prison. So why do they put him somewhere where there's no camera that's on him? Because usually, these self-unaliving cells, when you're on the self-unaliving watch, they can be monitored, but usually it's like a camera is facing them 24/7, and someone somewhere, there's a guard that's on camera duty, and he's got a whole switchboard of cameras that he's looking at, a whole bunch of different vantage points, and that would be so much more practical than having guards sit for a 4-hour uh portion of the day and just watch him 24/7 and fill out a log. When one, cameras and recordings are so much more reliable and you can see for yourself what happens and hear for yourself. Whereas any person who writes anything down is going to have some kind of bias about something somewhere in their life somewhere. So, isn't it better to like have a camera on him if you're going to monitor him 24/7? Shouldn't it be a recorded camera? Then you can record it all. Instead, they've got everyone and their mother, because we've got many guards that we're going to hear from that watched him, that were in this position that they had to watch him and they heard confessions or whatever. So I don't know. Just take that how you will, because I think these things that he just said sounded pretty phony to me, but I don't know. What do you guys think? All right. So McLeland says, "Mr. Clemens, when he made these statements at 7:30, 8:01, and 8:03, would that be something that you would write down immediately?" Yeah, I was told to write down everything he said, so. And so you would do that as he was saying those things? Yes. And how long did you observe? Well, let me back up. How many months were you stationed to be his companion for Mr. Allen? I couldn't tell you the exact amount of months, but it was a good amount of time. And what hours or what blocks of shifts of your shift would you be on this companion watch, Mr. Self-unaliving companion watch with Mr. Allen? Well, there was a point where we had one officer do the whole 12 with him. Then I believe they divided it. Oh my God. Can you believe that? Somebody sat there for 12 hours just watching him. That would be so boring. I'm sorry, but it would be. I would not want that job. Anyways, um, he says he believes they divided it in half or so. And then later we learned with the other guy, he said it was 4 hours. But would you observe Richard Allen each shift you worked? Yeah, I'd say yeah. And what was his behavior like? And did you observe him from the time he was Westville until the time that he left? Can you repeat the question? Sure. Did you observe him from the time that he came into Westville until the time he left? Yeah, when I was posted on APOD, yes. And what was his behavior like when he first arrived at Westville? Normal. At some point, did his behavior change? Yeah. Do you know when that was? I don't know exactly when. How did his behavior change? He just started acting different. How was he acting different? He'd say like random things. I don't know. You don't recall anything specific? Yeah, not anything specific. Okay, can you identify Mr. Richard Allen? Yes, he is here in the courtroom today. Yes, where is he sitting? He is sitting 2 seats to your right. Judge, will you let the record so reflect? The record will so reflect. I don't have any other questions, Judge. Thank you. Mr. Rosie, says the court. Mr. Rosie says thank you. And we will begin the cross-examination of Mr. Clemons. Sorry, that is Officer Clemons. He is still an officer. Mr. Rosie says, Officer Clemons, you actually gave a statement to a couple of investigators back on August 9th, 2023, didn't you? Yes. And they were there to try to get information from you about what was doing at the prison, right? Yeah. A couple of investigators. Who would a couple of investigators came to the prison to talk to the guards? I'm not familiar with that. All right, let's keep going. You said you were told to sit there next to his cell and write down everything he says, didn't you? Yes. There were inmates that were doing that before you, weren't they? Yes. And there were some problems with those inmates doing that, weren't there? I mean, I'm not the one that makes those decisions. Okay, well, that changed overnight, didn't it? When I came in, yes. From inmates to guards? When I came in, yes. One day, yes. Okay. And back on April 7th of 2023, Rick Allen never said anything to you specifically about what he did to those girls, did he? Is that this day? Is that the date of the document that I'm looking at? Yeah. Oh, on here, no. He never mentioned how he killed them. It didn't say anything specific. Not why he killed them. No. Just basically generic confessions, right? That's on the sheet. I'm sorry. That's what's just, at one point, he just cuts him off. At one point, he was actually referring to you as God, wasn't he? At one point, yes. Richard Allen was so doped up on Halidol, thanks to the Dr. Walla, that he thought this man watching him 24/7 while he's sitting there doing whatever, just hallucinating out of his mind. These guards sat there and watched and wrote down everything he said. This guy just sits there, and Richard Allen thinks he's God as he sits there and wa- writes down all these things that may or may not have actually happened. And there was a reference directing your attention to this exhibit 294 at 8:03 a.m. Do you see that entry? Yes. And it says, offender says, I'm not crazy. I'm only acting like I'm crazy, right? Yes. And that was actually him responding to some of the other inmates that were yelling at him, wasn't it? I don't know exactly. Well, would it help you refresh your recollection if I showed you your statement from August 9th? Yes. May I approach, Your Honor? The court says you may. Give me another second. Directing your attention to page 11, if you'd like a look at lines 4, if you take a look at lines 4 through 13, read those to yourself. Let me know when you're done. Yeah. It says that I said uh, I was pretty sure that's why he may have said that. There were a bunch of other people yelling, right? Yes. So it wasn't like he said that just without context. But you didn't report you didn't report the rest of that in your, no, I didn't, log sheet, right? No, I didn't document what the other offender said. Thank you. In fact, some of those same inmates were harassing him quite frequently, weren't they? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Sure you don't know. Okay, well, they were telling him that he ought to take his own life. They probably said that, yes. Called him a baby killer, didn't they? I don't know exactly what they said. Okay, well, you reported some of that in your statement too, didn't you? Yes. The others on the unit knew who he was, didn't they? Yes. And why he was there? Yes. They can be pretty evil on that unit, can't they? I'm not, some bad guys in there, aren't there? I'd say yes. You've been at the prison for 3 or 4 years now? Yes. Seen a lot of different inmates, right? Yes. And you said you didn't have any formal education in the field of mental health. No. So, to the extent that you strike that, you would have to defer to his doctor as it relates to his mental health condition, wouldn't you? I don't know any. You know Dr. Walla? Oh, yes, I knew Walla. You know that she was treating him from time to time there? Yes. She'd be in a better position to have an opinion about his state of mental health, right? Yes, she would. And you told officers back in August 2023 that you've dealt with crazy people before, right? With mental health codes and such. Right. What was Rick Allen's mental health code? I wasn't aware he had one. Okay. People with mental health codes are the ones that you referred to as crazy back then, right? Maybe, as like a general public would see as crazy. What's that? Maybe as like someone would interpret as crazy. Yes. Okay. As someone to be crazy as could be. So you just assumed he was normal functioning, didn't you? You assumed that he was normal functioning and he didn't have any mental health code? Yes, sir. If you found out he was a mental health code D, would your opinion change about his behaviors? What does a mental health code D entail? Do you even know? I don't know the actual codes, no. Okay, do you recall having to tase him one time back there? I never had to tase him personally. Were you there when he got tased? I was. He was in his cell, wasn't he? Yes. And he wouldn't take his hands out of the port that they served the food through, would he? Yes, sir. So they tased him because his hands were in the port of the door. He wasn't a threat to you, was he? I mean, when the hands are in the cuff port, there's a have to get the our policy at the facility is we have to get the hands back in the cuff port. Our policy is. Okay, so just hurt everybody because you've got a policy. Right. Somebody leaves their hands in the little port in the door, you gotta, yes, tase them if they don't if they won't take them out, right? Yeah, so they can't reach and grab and pull on us. Now, how big is that cuff port? It's a box about like this big, and he indicates. Okay. Can you just walk away for a minute and wait for him to take his hands out of the cuff port? We never walk away from an open cuff port. Okay, they're not going anywhere, are they? I mean, no. It's the most secure unit in the state of Indiana, isn't it? Yes, it is. I would think so. Mr. McClellan asked you about his changes in behaviors. Remember that a few minutes ago? Yes, sir. You said he started out normal, right? Yes, sir. And then things changed. Yes, sir. But you couldn't remember anything specific? No. Did you ever see him banging his head on the wall time and time again in his cell? Personally, no, sir. Okay, did you ever see him rubbing his feces all over his body in his cell? No, sir. Okay. Did you ever see him eating his own feces at any time? I don't know. How do you not know if you watch someone eat their own feces? I would think that that would be something that would stick with you for life. And it would be absolutely yes, and it was horrific, and I was traumatized by it, or no, I don't recall seeing that. That would be something weird to experience seeing. One of those answers would be appropriate, but not an I don't know. These guys are so fishy to me. Did you ever hear that any of those things happened to him from other officers? No. Okay, I don't have anything further. The court says, Mr. McClelland, thank you, Judge. And we've got some redirect here by of McClemens. Michael Clemons, sorry. Mr. McClelland says, Mr. Clemens, when you were observing the change in behavior from Mr. Allen, did you think his behavior was genuine? No, no, sir. Okay, whatever. Mr. Rosie asked you if he was acting crazy, and you said he was acting crazy. And if you didn't believe his behavior was genuine, did you think he was crazy? No, sir. Why not? It was my opinion that I didn't think he was crazy because of the way it happened so fast. It was like a switch. Yeah, because he's being drugged with very powerful hallucinogenics. God, these people are so stupid. Sorry, but it doesn't take rocket scientists to figure this out. It was my opinion that I didn't think he was crazy because of the way it happened so fast. It was like a switch because he was being medically drug induced into a psychosis. So he'd go from acting normal to acting crazy and switch like that? Yes. I don't have any other questions, Judge. Mr. Rosie has some redirect. And he says, flipped a switch, right? Yes, sir. He might have just lost it, right? Yes, sir. Prison can get to a man, can't it? I'm sure it can. Now, Investigator Mullins asked you during the August 8th interview whether or not you thought he was crazy, didn't he? Yes, sir. And you said, I don't think he's crazy, right? Yes, sir. And he asked you to explain that to him, didn't he? Yes, sir. And you said, I've never thought that. I mean, I've dealt with crazy people. Yes, sir. And you described crazy people as somebody like with mental health codes and stuff, right? Yes, sir. They actually have an official or an official code? Yes, sir. If you found out he has a mental health code D, might that change your opinion about his behavior back in April of 2023? It may. Mr. McClellan says, Judge, I guess I'm going to object just a foundational question. Do you know what mental health code D means? No, I do not. Then I'll object to the question. I don't think it's a proper question to ask the witness. Mr. Rosie says, May I rephrase the question? Court says, yes. You know that there are mental health codes, right? Yes. You just don't know which letters are which. Yes, sir. If you found out he had a code, would that change your opinion about what his actions were? It may. I have nothing further. The court says, does anybody on the jury have any questions for Mr. Clemens? Would counsel approach? So we do have some jury questions here. So let's get started on that. So they go to a sidebar, and the court says, or reads the question, is it possible that when filling out companion reports, you were documenting when Mr. Allen could be shouting out to other inmates? I'm okay with that, says Mr. McClelland. Mr. Rosie says, yeah. Sidebar conference concluded. And the court asks this to the witness. All right, sir, is it possible that when filling out companion reports, you were documenting when Mr. Allen could be shouting out to other inmates? He says, I guess it would be possible. Court says, okay. Any follow-up, Mr. McClelland? No, Your Honor. Mr. Rosie? No, ma'am. The court says, all right. Thank you, Mr. Clemons. You may step down, and could I have the exhibit, please? All right. You may call the next witness. Mr. McClelland says, Judge, State of Indiana will call Michael Roberts for our final witness of the day. For us, anyways. All right, so this is also another correctional officer. So, will you state your name, please? Michael Roberts. And Mr. Roberts, I'm going to ask you just to speak up. The microphone. Okay, let's skip that. He asks him to spell his last name and all that, and he does. Okay, through state of Indiana, through the state of Indiana, through the Westville Correctional. Oh, sorry, I skipped. And Mr. Roberts, how are you employed? Says Mr. McClelland. And Mr. Roberts says, through state of Indiana, through Westville Correctional Facility. Is that part of the Department of Corrections for the state of Indiana? Yes. And how long have you been employed there? 8 years. And did you go through any kind of special schooling or training to be a correctional officer? We went through our normal amount of training and we have our recertification every year to follow with it. So you go through annual training as well as the initial training that you went through? Yes. What does the annual training consist of? All our policies that we go over, all our daily, what we're going to go through, what we would expect, any new policies that have been brought up, go over, and how we're supposed to conduct ourselves throughout our shifts. What kind of shift did you work? I worked I group, daytime shift 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And what unit within the facility did you work? I worked at the WCU, which is the segregation unit. And are you familiar with an individual by the name of Richard Allen? Yes. And how do you know Richard Allen? I was assigned to be companion at the door to watch him. Yeah, he was also housed within the WCU, is that correct? Yes. And so you're familiar with him as an inmate in that unit? Yes. And were there times that you were assigned to watch his cell as a companion? Yes. And were there certain logs or documentation you filled out while acting as a companion? Yes. We were supposed to log everything he said and did throughout our watch. And did you do that? Yes. And did you note those things that he said and did in real time? Yes. Meaning you did it as he was doing those things? Yes, I wrote it down as he did it. And so, would your reports accurately reflect what Mr. Allen was doing and saying during the times that you would monitor him? Yes. I want to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 295. Are you familiar with this packet of documents? Yes. And what are those documents? Our logs of everything that happened for that day, for that shift that he said or did. And who is the author of those documents? I am. And how do you know that? It has my signature and my handwriting. And down the right side of the document, are those your initials? Yes. And during the left or down the left side of the document, are those the date and times that you observed Mr. Allen? Yes. Judge, the state would move to admit what's been marked as State's Exhibit 295. Mr. Rosie says, just 1 second, Your Honor. I'm trying to get organized here. Is this my copy, Nick? Mr. McClelland says, yes. Mr. Rosie says, no objection. The court says, all right, without objection, 295 is admitted. Mr. McClelland says, Judge, what I'd ask the court to do is to publish this to the jury and then allow the witness to go through them. There's a lot of stuff on these documents. Allow the witness to go through them and point out the questions. I guess I point out the spots in the documents that I'm going to reference questions for. Court says, okay. Mr. McClelland says, does that make sense? That's fine. Yeah, so you just want the jury to follow along as you go. Mr. McClelland says, just follow. Yes, Judge, thank you. The court says, okay. Mr. McClelland says, that's a way better way than to phrase it than what I did. The court says, or the exhibit is published for the jury, and the court says everybody has a copy. You may proceed. Mr. McLuhan says, "Thank you, Judge." Mr. Roberts, I'm going to draw your attention to the companion watch report from April 7th, and I'm going to draw your attention to 12:45 p.m. Can you tell the jury what Mr. Allen said on that date and time? Dear Lord, forgive me for molesting Abby Williams, Libby German, and Chris. Then I want to direct your attention to who the hell is Chris? Then I want to direct your attention to 1 p.m. What did Mr. Allen say? Dear God, forgive me for molesting Abby Williams, Libby German, Kevin, and Chris. Who the hell are Kevin and Chris? And then direct your attention to 1:45 p.m. What did Mr. Allen say? I want to confess, I know a lot more. Okay. I now want to draw your attention to the next page, April 13th, and I want to draw your attention to 8:15 a.m. What did Mr. Allen say on that date and time? What more do I got to do? Okay. I'm going to draw your attention to the companion watch report from April 23rd, the next sheet, and draw your attention to, sorry, it's actually the third sheet. Draw your attention to 2 p.m. that day. What did Mr. Allen say? I killed Abby Williams and Libby German. My wife wasn't involved. I would like to confess. I want to draw your attention to the next page on April 26th of 2023, and I want to draw your attention to 5:06 p.m. What did Mr. Allen say? Can I talk? Can you listen? I killed Abby Williams and Libby German. What about at 5:15 on that day? How do I prove that I'm sane? How do I prove that I'm insane? So first he wants to prove he's sane, and then he wants to prove he's insane? What? Sorry, and I want to draw your attention lastly to June 18th, the next page, and draw your attention to 3:30 on that day. What did Mr. Allen say? Why are you doing this? Do you know, God? Do you know why I'm here? I killed Abby Williams and Libby German. And then on June 21st, the last sheet in that packet, going to draw your attention to 3:15. What did Mr. Allen say? Do I make you mad? Have I told you about my wife? I killed Abby Williams and Libby German. Should I lay down? Okay, that's normal. Just working it in there with all these other questions. Got it. Okay. And again, are you documenting these things in real time as Mr. Allen stating them? Yes. Did you observe or were you assigned to the WCU the entire time that Mr. Allen was housed in that facility? He came to the facility a day before my shift started, so he was there a day, and then after that, my shifts were involved with him and watching him. And were you asked to watch him on a consistent basis? Yes. Any idea how many hours you spent as a companion for Mr. Allen? I couldn't count off the top of my head, but it was a lot. Excuse me. When he first arrived at the facility, back up, when you first started observing Mr. Allen, what was his behavior like? When he first came in, he was normal, coherent, talkative, maybe a little scared. Because you're scared when you come to prison the first time, but just like a normal person being locked up. At some point, did his behavior change? After about a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months, he started changing his behavior, acting abnormal, changing himself, making it seem like he was not there. He couldn't hear you. He couldn't talk. He was acting up. Or he was on Halidol. During your experience with the Department of Corrections, did you ever have any training to identify an inmate who's suffering from a mental health issue? Yes. Tell me about that. We go through RHU training, which is restricted housing unit, and then we also go through how to recognize certain signs that someone has a mental health disorder. about it, if they can be dangerous one day and nice the next day, but we're taught how to handle it, we're taught how to recognize it and how to report it. And do learning those signs help you keep the inmate safe? Yes. When Mr. Allen's behavior changed, did you notice any of those signs that you were taught to recognize? Yes. What signs did you see? He began doing more and more outrageous things make you look to make you look at him, to make you gasp, make him get the attention to him. So if he would try to act up, he would wait for you to watch him, watch what he's doing, and then I don't know what you're supposed to be watching him 24/7 when you're sitting there. So why is he got to wait for you? And then I don't know what he got out of it, but he would act up when you're watching. He wouldn't act up when you're not watching. How do you know if you're not watching? And so, from your training and experience, was that an indication that he was suffering from a mental health issue? It more so pointed to that he was more acting up instead of actually having something. Do you recall Mr. Allen visiting with the chaplain at times? The chaplain would come and talk to him. He would try to talk to him. A lot of times he ignored him, but the chaplain would talk, and a lot of times he would want to talk about getting a Bible or I'd object to hearsay. Sustained. So you don't recall there were times that Mr. Allen would speak to the chaplain? Yes. So you do recall, sorry. And he says yes. During those times, he would speak with the chaplain. What would Mr. Allen say? It depends on the day. But he would, a lot of times, he would talk about his family. A lot of times, I tend to not listen to what they are saying just to keep it more private because it's religious but from what I was here, did hear or understood, he was talking about his family, about what he wanted, how his day was, just seeing if he's in a good mood or not. Did he ever make a statement? Did Richard Allen make a statement of the chaplain that I can't choose God over family? If he said that, it wasn't in front of me. Okay. And is Richard Allen here in the courtroom today? Yes. Can you tell the court what he's wearing? Glasses on his head, striped shirt, gray pants, black shoes. Let the record so reflect, says Mr. McLeland. The court says, and so it does. Mr. McLeland says, I don't have any other questions, Judge. Thank you. Mr. Rosie, says the court. So we're going to go to cross examination now for Officer Roberts. Um, Mr. Rosie is again doing the questioning. So, one of the repeated themes that you observed was that Mr. Allen's primary concern was for his family. A lot of times he would mention his family, but then a lot of times he would mention other things, other people, and then he would just mention things that didn't make sense. Well, he definitely was concerned about his family. His wife? Yes. You gave a statement to officers back on August 8th, 2023 at the prison. Say that again? You gave a statement you interviewed with some officers back on August the 8th, 2023 at the prison. Yes. And they spent quite a bit of time with you, asking you questions about all of this. Yes. You've been at the DOC for 6 years? At the time, it was 6 years, yes. Okay, and you worked in on the WCU unit, the max security unit, for how many? Since COVID, like a year before COVID, so 5 or 6 years, give or take. And you were assigned to APOD right before Rick arrived? Yes. And when was that? When I was assigned to APOD, I don't know the exact date. Well, any idea? 2020, I started APOD. Okay. I was on APOD for a year when he came in. Okay. So it wasn't right before he arrived. It was a year before? I've been on APOD, yes. That's not answering the question. All right. Your memory's not quite so good today, right? I mean, I worked in, what do you mean? If I told you he got there in November of 2022, would that sound about right? I mean, I don't know dates off the top of my head. Okay. A lot of stuff has happened between now and then. I understand. I understand. You said when he got there, he was kind of scared and wasn't talking to anyone, right? Yes. But he didn't have any altercations with staff or anything like that, did he? No, not at first. He was fine, wasn't he? Yes. Pretty docile. Kept to himself? Quiet, yes. And then you said that his behavior seemed pretty normal from about January to April, right? Yes. And then you said he only acted up when his lawyers came? Yeah. So the first time that I was there when the lawyers came, and then the day that is when he started showing signs of everything else. Okay, so just one time. More than once. Well, how many times did his lawyers come when you were there? When I was there, at least 4 times. Okay. And who did you see? What do you mean? His lawyers? Yeah, did you see his lawyers? Yes. And who did you see? The two that always come. Sometimes they would bring interns, sometimes they wouldn't. Okay. And who were they? Did you ever talk to them or have any interactions with them? I never talked with them. The only thing I ever talked to him is he asked my name one time, and that was the intern asking me. Okay. And you said you had or you don't have any formal mental health education, do you? Other than what the state provides me for training, that's all right. So you haven't gone to college and gotten any kind of degrees in mental health. Not mental health, no. Okay. You're just talking about whether the training is that they give all the officers when you show up. Just the training and my expertise through it. Okay. Do you know or do you have certificates or anything referencing your completion of any training? Yes. Where are those? All in my state profile. What's the definition of a serious mental health illness? Do you know the DOC? I don't know what their definition is, but I know what my definition is. Okay, you have your own of what mental health is? Yes. Serious mental health or mental illness. Yes, that's when something's affecting your head and making you act out. Oh, okay, professional. Okay, that's what serious mental illness is? Yes. Okay, when you're acting up. Not just acting, it's actually involved when you have a mental illness. You just showed how dumb you are, sir. That made no sense. So, when something's affecting your head and making you act up, right? I mean, you can have something in your brain make you act up. You can just have impulses that do it. But yes. So, as far as the log sheets are concerned, you were pretty detailed, weren't you? Yes. Keeping logs and Exhibit 295, you reported a number of things in these pages that Richard Allen did while he was at the DOC, right? Yes, sir. You said that he told you he molested Dawn. Yes. Did he tell you who Dawn was? Nope. Okay. He told you that he molested Abby Williams, right? Yes. Told you he molested Libby Derman. Yes. He told you he molested the person named Chris. Yes. And he also told you he molested someone named Kevin, didn't he? Yes. And at one point, he started smearing feces all over his face, didn't he? Yes. He'd do his business in the toilet or in his food tray, and then he'd rub it on the walls. Yes. All over his cell, all that he was doing this, wasn't he? Yes. And you said he was a pain in the butt, right? Because you had to do more work. I mean, someone doing that for attention for that is inconveniencing on top of what we have to do, it's making us do more. Yes. Do you really think anyone in their right mind would be doing that? What are these? Fucking officers' problems, man. I'm sorry, but this pisses me off. Like, no one would do this in their right mind. He's just acting up. It's just in his head. He's just acting up. That's a serious mental health issue. But he doesn't even. Then he's like, it's an inconvenience. It makes more work for us. Are you freaking kidding me, sir? Maybe treat these people with a little more dignity and respect and don't dope them up on drugs and maybe you won't have such problems on your hands, but whatever. Okay. Sorry, I got really heated on that. My heart's I feel it racing. Okay. Inmates only do that stuff for retaliation, right? That's what you said. Not all of them. All of them that have mental issues that do that and their impulses that do it. Others do it just to get attention because they know it inconveniences the COs. All right. But you distinguished somebody who just rubs it on themselves from somebody who eats it, didn't you? What do you mean? Well, you said if somebody's just rubbing it on himself, that's one thing, but if you're eating it, they have a disorder. That's what you told the officers, didn't you? Not necessarily you have one, but it's definitely different things to rub it on yourself and to eat it. All right. Those are two different things to you? Yes. One of them, the first one, you're pretty used to, right? Seeing people, yes, rub, yes. But once somebody starts eating it, when they're in a whole different class, then they're in a whole different class of crazy, aren't they? It makes it takes more internal to do that. Yes. What? Okay, this guy is stupid. And by the way, I think this is one of the guards that had an Odin patch. I can't remember who it is. There were two of them that I can remember, and I want to say Roberts was one of them, and I can't remember the other one now. But the names of those officers did come out, so it was Roberts, I believe, and somebody else. So I think this is one of those Odinist officers, correction officers that was there. So if that changes how you feel about this testimony, now you know why I feel so angry. But once somebody starts eating it, that's uh, a whole different class. It takes a whole internal to do that, yes. Okay. Some will do it, some people won't, and that's where they draw the line with it. But if they're gonna take it that far, yes. You said, so I've dealt with ones that have a disorder where they actually eat their own feces, right? Yes. We're going to object, Mr. McLeland says. It's been asked and answered. Sustained. So there's a difference between those two things, right? Objection, judge, asked and answered. Sustained. He does that too, where he asks the same question twice to just, you do that to get clarification, to make sure you're getting the answer on the record. Mr. Rosie says, I haven't asked that. The court says, you asked it. He answered that. If I told you that he was eating feces, would you change your opinion then about his mental health state and where he was when he was there? I'd have to observe it. If I didn't observe it, I can't take other people's words for it. You agree that working in a prison is tough. Of course it is. A tough environment, isn't it? Yes. You deal with the worst of the worst in there, don't you? Yes. On a daily basis? Yes. And it's hard to have sympathy for people in a place like that, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing to have sympathy towards somebody, but to understand them, I mean, understand why someone would act up first time they're coming in or doing it. But sympathy is having an emotional attachment to somebody, and I try not to get attached to somebody who, so nothing goes one way or the other. There were a lot of other inmates in there around Rick, weren't there? Yes. About 55 other cells in that pod. Give or take, yeah. Some of them were empty, some were not. They get filled every day. Sorry, he continued. They get filled every day. And they would frequently yell at him, wouldn't they? Not when he was sitting in his cell, they wouldn't yell at him. Okay, well, when he got out of his cell, would they yell at him? Wouldn't they? They'd usually do that to everybody with certain cases. They'll yell at them down the way. Tell him to take his own life? Yes. Tell him he's a baby killer? Yes. All the regular stuff, right? Yes. And that's a normal day in the WCU, isn't it? Yes, those kinds of offenses, yes. It's a form of entertainment for these other offenders, isn't it? Objection calls for speculation. Sustained. Now the officer specifically asked you about one of the incidents where he smeared feces on his face, didn't he? Yes. And you said he had it on his face for about 2 hours, right? Yes. And at some point he realized he didn't like it, right? Yes. So he would wipe it off of himself? Yep. He wasn't getting a reaction like he wanted? Yes. I didn't give him any reaction to it. I just ignored it. Or sorry, you just ignored it. Observed it and wrote it down when what he was doing. Yeah, you didn't call your supervisor to come in and help? I contacted a supervisor as soon as it happened. But after 2 hours, somebody showed up, didn't they? Somebody came up right away and then they contacted mental health for her to come. But she was at her home at the time because it was the weekend, so it took a time for her to come. It took time for her to come in. At least 2 hours? I don't know the exact time, but I contacted my supervisor and contacted mental, I told them to contact mental health. Okay, but you said he wasn't getting the reaction he wanted, right? Mr. McLeland says, Judge, objection. Again, objection asked and answered. Mr. Rosie says, I'll move on. So, what's the threshold for how long somebody has to sit there with feces on their own face to be crazy? You tell me. What do you mean? Well, how long do you have to sit there like that before you would believe that that was a genuine action by somebody? Just that action alone won't determine if I believe they are crazy or not. Oh, okay. If your grandma did that to herself, would you feel that way? Depends on the day. Really? So you think she might have something wrong with her? My grandmother had dementia, so yes. Yeah, if your brother did something like that to himself, you think Mr. McLeland says, Judge, I'm going to object. What's the relevance to this? Sustained. I'm drawing an analogy, Mr. Rosie says. The court says, sustained. He told you in some of the other statements that his grandpa molested him? Yes. That he wanted KFC? Yes. At one point, he actually asked you to read him his last rites, didn't he? Yes. And he had ideations to take his own life, didn't he? He never said outright that he was going to take his own life. He just said that he wants to die or doesn't want to live anymore. You also said that he did spent a lot of time walking back and forth in that cell, didn't he? Yes. Are those inmates on APOD allowed in-person visits? Not since. Are they allowed in-person visits? I'm sorry? Not since COVID happened. They haven't. Okay. They can do visits, but not in-person visits, just because it's segregation. So they don't allow too many people off that unit, do they? No. Not even his lawyers. Lawyers are allowed to visit, which is extremely rare, isn't it? Yeah, well, lawyers do come to the back and they are in-person visits, but it needs to be monitored. It's a mental health. APOD is a mental health unit for long-time offenders, isn't it? Yes. You remember Richard Allen tapping his head on the wall? Yes. Time and time again over the period of a very long period of time. Yes. And you talked about how you didn't have any sympathy for him there, did you? I never said I never had any sympathy. Well, you questioned the authenticity of that action, didn't you? Well, he was hitting his head on the wall. He wasn't slamming his head on the wall. He was just tapping it, and normal tapping is normal for people that are don't have anything to do. Uh, Guys, tell me, when you're bored and you've got nothing to do you just sit there and tap your head on the wall over and over again? Because I sure don't. This guy is lying through his teeth and not making sense, and he sounds stupid as hell. But he did it over a long period of time, didn't he? Yes. And at one point his entire face was black and blue from it, wasn't it? When signs started showing, that's when I told him to stop it. That's when I informed my supervisors. So that's what he looked like the next day, didn't he? If you tap your head on a wall for a long time, yes. His entire face was black and blue. The entire face wasn't black and blue. It was swollen, but it wasn't black and blue. And there was a long period of time where he was refusing his meds and his rec and his food and showers, wasn't it? Yes. And you were aware that these companions were also watching him. At first, they were watching him, yes. Meaning the inmate companions, I guess. And these people were violating the rules of their own program, weren't they? Objection, Judge. Foundational question, says Mr. McClelland, and the court says yes. Mr. McClelland asks, do you know, did you investigate any time any rules were violated by the companions? That's more so handled by the supervisors, but hold on, were you part of any investigation into any violation of rules by inmate companions? No. Judge, I'm going to object to the question. It calls for speculation. Mr. Rosie says, I'll rephrase it. Sustained. You told the officers that these companions were telling people in general pop, and all this stuff was spreading like wildfire, didn't you? Yes. So they were taking what he was saying in his cell, going back to general pop, spreading the word, the good word. That's how it usually works, or that's how it usually happens. And you said that in May, June, and July, you used the words Rick Allen accepted what was happening to him, right? You have to point to that. Which one? Miss Rosie says, may I approach? The court says, you may. Would it help to refresh your recollection? Look at your statement within the officers, or with the officers. Sure. Direct your attention to page 32, lines 3 through 7. 3 through 7, you said? Okay. Can you give me an idea of what his May, June, and July looked like as far as his behavior? Not what he did in the beginning, but it's also more so he's accepted what's happening to him. Right. Mr. McLeland says, Judge, I'm going to object. He's reading it into the record to help refresh his recollection. That's fine. You need to ask him a question that's improper. Impeachment. Sustained, of course. Is that what you said? Judge, all that did was get around the objection I just made. If he's got a question for him, that's fine, but that's improper. Court says, it's improper impeachment. Do it. Okay, Mr. Rosie says, thank you, Judge. Do it correctly if you'd like to get to do it. Did you say to those other officers in your August 8th interview that Rick Allen had accepted what was happening to him? Yes. He came to terms with it, right? Usually people that go to prison accept it after a while, yes. So he accepted that he was in jail for the first time in his 50 years of his life, didn't he? Didn't he? Objection. I'm going to object, Your Honor. It calls for speculation, asked and answered. Sustained on speculation. Well, he accepted that he was thrown into this most secure unit in the state of Indiana. Objection, Judge, asked and answered. Sustained. Well, he didn't answer it. I was just going to say that. Mr. Rosie says he didn't. He hasn't answered it. He answered the question, sir, says the court. No, bitch. He didn't answer the question because you cut him off. Or McClelland did. So he accepted that he'd been completely isolated from society for months and months. If that's how long it had been that he'd been locked up, then yes. So he accepted he had to sleep on a metal slab on the floor. He had a mat that when he was in his cell. About that big, wasn't it? That's what the state provides, yes. He accepted that he had to use the toilet in front of others. There was nobody else watching him other than the companions. Well, he accepted that he gets food through a hole in the door. That's how all inmates in segregation accept their food. But all those other inmates have been convicted of crimes, haven't they? Yes. He gets the privilege of showering 3 times a week. He was offered showers, yes. And he accepted that he gets to pace back and forth across his cell for entertainment, right? That's up to him what he wants to entertain himself with. Are you kidding me? That's up to him what he wants to entertain himself with. Someone who's been mercilessly locked up for 13 months and drugged. Yeah, he can entertain himself however he wants. That's not any of my business. These people are so callous and heartless, and they don't give an F that they're wrong. They think they're on the right side of corruption. They are the corruption, though. Oh, this makes me so mad. All right, let's see if I can get through this without yelling some more. And he accepted that. Instead of normal clothing, he got to wear a gown, didn't he? That's usually what happens when you go on self-unaliving watch is you get put in a gown. So it's for your own safety. So when you're on self-unaliving watch, you have less privileges and more restrictions, right? Yes. And all this stuff is recorded all the time that he is there, wasn't it? Directing your attention to, he says yes, sorry. Directing your attention to Exhibit 295. Do you have that in your hand, sir? Yes. The first page there is your log sheet from April 7th, 2023, right? Yes. Let me direct your attention to the 115 timestamp. Do you see that? Your entry there? Yes. So read that to the jury, if you would, please. Which one? Strike that. What did Richard Allen tell you at 1:15 p.m.? There's 3 entries there. At 1:28, he said to me, I will never smoke in my life. Okay. This is in the 1:15 column, right? Yes. Okay. It was between 1:15 and 1:30? Oh, sorry, that was not the question. He says it was between 1:15 and 1:30. You said he was sitting in a corner. Yes. And what's the next thing you said there? Raining in place? Ran in place. So ran in place. Yes. Naked? Yes. For 5 seconds? Yes. Then, quote, I will never again smoke in my life, he said. Right? Yes. And then at 1:30, you made some other entries there. Yes. What did he say to you at 1:30? God, I'm sorry for wasting your time. What else did he say? I'll never smoke, cheat on my wife again. I'm a Libra. I'll never smoke, cheat on my wife again. I'm a Libra. Okay. Turning your attention to the second page, April 13th, 2023 at 8:15 a.m. You see that? Yes. So at that point, he's rolling around on the ground, like rolling back and forth. Yes. Would you have called mental health at this point so they could intervene? No, because he wasn't trying to self-harm. He wasn't making statements. He was just rolling around on the ground. He could be entertaining or for he could be entertaining for himself. A lot of them inmates do that in their cells. Hold on, I'm dying right now. I'm boiling. I get hot flashes out of nowhere. All right. Would you have called mental health? He says no, because he was just rolling around on the ground. A lot of inmates do that, apparently. Okay. That's all there is to do in an 8 by 12 cell at the WCU, isn't it? Work out and read. All right. That's about it. And roll around on the floor. If they choose to do that, yes. That's what you said. That's what you just said. That's what they do sometimes. Yeah. That's common up there, isn't it? Rolling on the ground. Yeah, not super common, he says, but a lot of them do weird things in their free time. Ever seen animals at the zoo do it? Mr. McLeland says, Judge, I'm going to object to relevance. Sustained. On 8:45 entry on April 13th, drawing your attention to that. Yes, you see that? Yes. He said, I swear I never cheated on a cigarette. Yes. Thought I was eating pizza. Yes. Officer Clemens, this is Robert, you said you had some mental health training, right? Through the state? Yes. And you've worked in that prison for how many years? 8 years. Would you agree with me that putting somebody in solitary confinement in a setting like the WCU is detrimental to their mental health? Mr. McLellan says, I would object to the form of the question, Judge. The court says, sustained. Would you agree? Thank you. Would you agree that putting someone in a cell like that in the Westville Correctional Unit could be detrimental to their mental health? Detrimental to their mental health. It just depends on how okay they are in their head, or it's mostly for to keep them safe from the outside or the outside safe from them. Okay, but I'm talking about from mental health standpoint. I'm not a mental health professional. Was there anything about locking somebody up in one of those units for weeks and weeks and weeks and months on end that's good for them? Objection, Judge, asked and answered. Anything? Sustained. No, I haven't asked that. He said, I'm not a mental health professional. Well, you've got training, don't you? I have training, yes, but I'm not a mental health professional. Well, is there anything about the environment that makes somebody better? Mr. McLellan says, Judge, I'm going to object. It's been asked and answered. He gave him an answer to that question. Sustained. I don't have anything further. Mr. McLeland, says the judge. Mr. McLeland says, thank you, Judge. Now we've got some redirect here. Mr. McLeland says, Officer, you testified that an inmate in their cell, they can read and they can exercise. Can they also have an opportunity to go to rec? Yes. They also have an opportunity for a Bible. Is that correct? Yes. I don't have any other questions, Judge. Thank you. Mr. Rosie, and he does have some recross. He says, sorry, I'm trying to write and do talk at the same time. Uh, recross, Mr. Rosie. I also saw a note in one of the entries that said he got some crayons every now and then. Do you recognize that from mine? Point to, yeah, the mental health providers would come by and give him some crayons. I don't know the mental health provider, so I don't know that what they gave them. Do you remember seeing them around the cell? The mental health provider? Yeah. Yeah, she was around. We would bring him out and they would put him in the little cubicle where she would talk to him. You're talking about him going down to the cage where he had his therapy sessions, right? It's a cubicle where they would have privacy from anybody that's within earshot of his cell. But yeah, it's a tiny little room, isn't it? 3 by 3, maybe? Objection asked and answered. He testified to what it is. Sustained. My God, these should not be sustained. They're not even really good objections, most of them. Some of them are, but not all of them. So describe to them what it looks like. Mr. McLellan says, Judge, objection. He just did. It's asked and answered. Mr. Rosie says he said it's a cubicle. I'm asking him to describe. Overruled. Describe it in detail. Overruled. It's a square room. There's a table where someone can sit in front of him. It's a table where someone can sit in front of each other, and then there's a side part where if the person has a mental issue, a mental code, they sit in there. That way, they're not attacking whoever they're talking to. Mental health. So they talk to the counselor through a grate, the grate, don't they? Yes. And that's where Rick Allen sat, isn't it? Yes. I have nothing further. Does anybody on the jury have any questions for Mr. Roberts? And they do. So she asks them to approach for a sidebar. And she says, is everything you log on your suicide companion report also video recorded? Mr. McClellan says, I'm okay with that. Mr. Rosie says, I'm okay with that. Do you know if these recordings are saved? Okay with that. Okay with that. What would happen if someone had feces on them? Would they give them something to help clean them up, or would they go to the shower to get clean? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Can I just kind of combine them then? Yeah. So you state that he looked to make sure that he was being watched. When would he not be watched if he was on this watch? That's a good question. Mr. Rosie says, I'm okay with that. The court says, do the cameras in the cells only video record? Mr. McClellan says, okay. Mr. Rosie says, okay. Mr. McClellan says, I think you should ask it in conjunction with that. I mean, the question I would have is it video and audio? So I don't know if you can combine those two, but I think that's what they're asking. Court says, okay. And then we'll have to take our break. Mr. McClellan says, okay. Sidebar concluded. Jury questions are read by the court. Mr. Roberts, is everything you log on your companion watch report video recorded or audio recorded? I believe it's video recorded and audio recorded. So then what is the point of these watchers? There's a camera in the room. So yes. Then what is the point of these people? Why are they there? This makes no sense, and what a waste of resources. Any follow-up, Mr. McClellan? Mr. McClellan asks, do you know if that camera has audio or not? Asked and answered, says Mr. Rosie. He said, I believe it has audio. Bam. He just threw that back in McClellan's face. The court says he did. Mr. McClellan says, sorry, Judge. The court says, Mr. Rosie? No. The next question, do you know if these recordings are saved? Like on a database? Yes, but I don't know what happens from it after that. So a daily basis, is that what you said? Like a database, like a database. I'm sorry. Hard drive. I didn't understand. Mr. McClellan? Mr. McClellan says, no, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Rosie? No. I'm sorry. Mr. Rosie says no. Um, Mr. Rosie, what would someone strike that? What would happen if someone had feces on them? Were they given something to help clean up, or would they go to the shower to get clean? The witness says, we usually pull them. We take them to like that there's a shower that's separate from everywhere, so nobody's watching them or hears them or whatever, but we take them to the separate spot and we have them wash. If they don't wash, we wash them with a medical person there, and then we have porters or like cleaners that come and clean their cell. Any follow-up, Mr. McClellan? No, Your Honor. Mr. Rosie? No, ma'am. You state that he looked to make sure he was being watched. When would he not be watched if he was on this self-unaliving watch? When I would be looking at my paper, writing my logs, if I would just look the other way for whatever noise is coming down the end of the hallway with the other inmates, if somebody was walking in. The court says, go ahead. Mr. McClellan says, no questions. Thank you. Mr. Rosie says, well, the camera would be on. Yes. And there's somebody in a control unit that's watching that camera? Yes. So, and you said that you might not be watching him at times because you're doing other things. If I'm logging, the only times I didn't have my eyes on him is if I was logging it on the paperwork or if there was a noise on the range. Did you spend a lot of time drawing anime at that prison? I mean, I'm known for drawing, yes, doodling, anime, not just anime. Okay, other things? Yes. You did that while you were working a lot? I mean, in my free time. nothing else. So he was doodling while he was supposed to be watching this guy. Okay. Now we know why he wasn't watching him, because he was doodling. Mr. Rosie has nothing else. The court says, all right, thank you, Mr. Roberts. You may step down and I'll take the exhibit if you don't mind. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this would be an appropriate time for us to take our afternoon recess. While you're outside the courtroom, please keep your minds open. Don't form any opinions or conclusions about anything. You can discuss the evidence, but please don't deliberate or come to any conclusions. Gentlemen, the bailiff says, all rise. The jury leaves. The court says, you may be seated, and would counsel just approach briefly. Uh, Sidebar is conducted. The court says, I know you had indicated you wanted to get through all the DOC, so we're on the third, so we've got 6 more to go. Are there going to be Are they going to be as long as him or as long as Mr. Clemons and Mr. Drang? Mr. McClellan says, I'm expecting them to be all about the same. The court says, okay. Mr. McClellan says, we'll be asking them the same because there are sheets with each one. The court says, okay, okay. So these are all separate confessions, supposedly. Mr. McClellan says something inaudible about the Odin group. And it's surprising that the court reporter didn't hear that about the Odin group. It's inaudible. The court says, okay, so we can theoretically get through all of these people. Mr. McClellan says, that's my hope, but we might have to go a little later tonight. The court says, okay. Mr. McClellan says, even if it's just to get them done, so we can send them back up. The court says, okay, or down south. The court says, that's fine. Mr. McClellan says, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left. The court says, okay. Mr. McClellan says, I have 5 left. You have 5. Okay. I think we can get through 5. We've done 4. The warden was 3. Right. Okay. So, all right, says the court. Mr. McClellan says, I have 9 altogether. The court says, you have 9 altogether. They're just repeating each other's answers. Mr. McClellan says, 8 correctional officers. I misunderstood that yesterday, says the court. That's fine, says McClellan. The court says, okay, very good. McClellan says something inaudible. The court says, yeah, we're done. Sidebar conference concluded. All right, let's take our 15 minutes then. Thank you. They go off the record. We will continue next week, starting right where we left off. Basically, for me, what I'm thinking is he was on Helidol this whole time while these people are writing these things. Plus, these are all possibly Odinistic correctional officers. They might have ties to Odinism. And this guy apparently just likes to doodle in his spare time, which would be probably during his big chunks of time where he's sitting there doing nothing other than watching Richard Allen. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just spent his whole time doodling and just making stuff up, because I believe this guy might have been the Odinist. Allegedly. I don't know. But I think he had one of the Odinist patches on him that the defense noticed when they went to go visit Richard Allen. All right, well, that is where we will leave off for today. I will see you guys next week, basically with however many more. Who do we have left? Yeah, we've got like 4 more in the next one. So, yeah, it's going to be 4 more correctional officers in the next episode. So, am I counting right? Yeah. Okay. So we will do that in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this case, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. Take care. That's the end of this Trial Transcripts Exposed. Thanks for following along with me. Like if you want more, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. See you next time.